every good song always starts with a rough idea. And a lot of people that are getting into music don't know what that process of bringing it from a rough idea to a finished product that we'd hear on a streaming platform, on a record, and other means. So what is that process?
Welcome back to the channel. We hope you enjoyed our last video. So on this week video, we like to share with you guys a journey how to start from an idea of a song and then until the process to get into the polished professional release.
So every song is going to start with an idea, like the one I played at the beginning of this video. So an idea could be a vocal, it could be a guitar part, it could be it could be the hook of the song, and then you build from that. So it could be something as just recording on your voice memos. I would record, I have 1,000 voice memos of my phone on just different ideas as I played in different bands, and I would come up with different ideas, knowing that as long as I saved it, I could always come back to it later. And many of those, it's been years since I've listened to them, but I know they're always there, and they could always generate, each one could be a song in itself. So starting out with your idea, just capturing it is very important, because a lot of times if you play something and you're just kind of making stuff up, sometimes you don't remember what you played. So the best thing you could do if you're just practicing and you're trying to come up with ideas is just record. Doesn't matter how you're recording it. It could be on your phone, could be on your laptop. Just recording, just voice memos. Just record your idea. So at least you got something to work with and you got something to listen back on.
Right. A lot of people that I know, they start with an instrument riff. Some people, they can just have it in their head to and then write their lyrics everything from their head. But for me, most of the time I start with guitar. I play and noodle it, and I like that riff, and then that's when I start going into details about the lyrics or how I want to eventually lead to the second part, which is the arrangement.
So arrangement and structuring, those are important parts of the song. So your arrangement is going to be how you layer the song. If you're adding drums, if you're adding bass, synthesizers, vocals, background vocals, the original idea could have just been a guitar riff and you want to build out. So that's your arrangement. Your structuring is going to be, your sequence of how the song progresses from verses to chorus, bridge. Most pop songs would be like intro, verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, and then you're out. Mm-hmm. But that's a cookie cutter way of writing a song. It doesn't need to be that way. That's just one formula. So
I think recently we just mixed a song that no chorus.
Yeah. So, and there's songs that don't have choruses. There's a bunch of I believe a lot of worship songs don't have choruses from ones that I've taught some students before. It's just verse, 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 verse. So there's just knowing the order, the structure of your song. That's good for communicating with anybody else that might work on it, and just so you can organize it.
Right. I think after you're happy with your arrangement and the structure of your song, you start recording, get a demo to have a complete song, and then working on the demo to whether you show it to the band or show it to the rest of
just friends and family, anybody you want a second opinion,
right?
Anyone you want to collaborate with. So it could be bandmates if you have other people you're writing with, or it could be potential bandmates, the people that you might want to bring into the project and see what they could add to it. Or it could be a studio that you want to take it to and maybe re-record it and make it more professional from the beginning. Maybe your gear, is lacking in terms of, what it can do. It might be limitations in what you have in your setup.
Right. Maybe a lot of the time, a lot of artists send us the demo where they just have a guitar and a vocal, and then after that,
need to fill it out.
Yeah, we help them to we kind of work with them to see if, whether do they want to bring the drums in, the cello, or violin, depends on the song.
So along with the demo aspect, one common mistake that seems to get people in a rut is just overthinking and getting too focused on it being perfect, because
Delay in the whole process, right?
you can get into analysis paralysis on that, and to where you never feel like it's ready to move on, and you might
Stuck.
stay on a song for years at that point. And as long as it eventually gets made, that's cool, but sometimes you don't come back to those songs. If you might get frustrated at the point of, oh, I've done 100 edits of this song and I'm just kind of sick of it now. So just go with your gut, make sure you're keeping it fun, and just look forward to what it's going to be in the end.
So once you have a happy demo that you're ready for professional tracking, that's when you send your demo to a recording studio to have it professionally tracking with the gain stage and etc.
So once you bring your demo to a studio, there's a couple things that you really benefit from in this process versus having done it yourself. For one, when you're retracking your ideas in a studio, you have other ears in the room that might guide you towards different decisions that might help better suit your song. You have better equipment that can give you more options in terms of your tones. You might have different guitar amplifiers, different guitars at hand, different mics, different preamps. Even just the room itself is going to be better suited to recording, from microphones with the room treatment and things like that.
Acoustic.
And then the gain staging of, for those of you that don't know. So, say if you crank the input of, a microphone, you can get a very distorted sound, and you might not want that. You might think, if you aren't familiar with it, that you could just turn down that signal in your digital audio workstation, but it's already been distorted from the beginning. So you want to make sure your gain
maxed out your
staging.
headroom. Right.
So there's different stages, just that as an engineer like myself of a studio, that for every step of the way I'm trying to quality control it in ways that a lot of more beginner, intermediate songwriters or recording enthusiasts might not be aware of. So those are some benefits you get. And then once you record all of these, you track all the elements. Everybody's agreed that, okay, everything's done in there, and that would include anything from if you're recording with a full band or all individual, it could be recording everything one at a time, or it could be recording full band and then do overdubs, solos after that, vocals.
Right. Usually, if they, after the end of the tracking, we bounce, we do a quick bounce, which is kind of like a quick export of the files to the band for them to listen back.
Yeah, just a real rough mix, just to make sure, are they happy with everything? Do they want to redo their solos?
Right.
Do they want to, maybe they want to, I've had singers want to change the words last minute, and it's this is the point you want to do it before you really get into the mixing and the editing.
Right.
You want to make sure, well, all your microphones are set up, you got all the gear, everybody's there, and it could be on a different day. You could track on one day and give the band, a day that they can reflect and then come back and go, okay, we're happy with everything. And that's when you'd move on to the mixing and the editing stages.
Right. So for mixing, there's so many, if you are a mixer yourself, that there are people who mix in the box, which is mainly just, everything's with the computer. They don't need to use any outboard gears or even consoles, or the hybrid one, which is half this and, half in the box, or completely, outside, out.
Completely analog, yeah.
Yeah,
That'd
completely.
be like tape machines and stuff, which are very few studios nowadays.
Right, but ultimately they're just tonal preference from my point of view.
So we do,
yeah.
like in our studio, we do a hybrid. We do a lot of stuff in the box, but we utilize, the console and the outboard gear in every song we've mixed. And that's, I feel like, for me personally, that's what I would prefer, because I love the feel of twisting the knobs and getting the tones that come from the hardware with the tubes and all that. They do add a different coloration that some of the plugins can't quite get, even though they try to get close to them.
Right.
But then you do have the benefit of, the mixing in the box, and the editing there is way easier than, old school editing tape.
Well, especially there's some mixer that, on the move. So, if you have everything in the box, it's a lot easier for you to move one place to another.
Yeah, one studio to another if
Right.
you're going somewhere. So, we're speaking kind of more from the engineer side, but, from an artist side, when you get that give that okay that everything's recorded, and now it's ready for them to edit and mix it, they're going to clean up the tracks. They're going to try to get rid of any noises that might have been, maybe in between words, or, they're going to start just cleaning up the tracks. That you could call that housekeeping on the tracks. And then you start mixing. You start, adjusting the EQ, the levels of the tracks. You start panning them out, getting your sound stage so everything kind of fits within your range of hearing. So things are going to some of it's going to be in the middle, some of it's going to be outside. So you're basically painting a picture of it left to right. So as an artist, this is the point where you're going to give a lot of feedback of when you want certain things louder, certain things quieter, certain things more up front. If you want effects added in there, if you want delays or anything like that added in there, this is a good part to be hands-on with the engineer, and also be learning from the engineer of how they're doing some things if you are interested in getting to know that better yourself. And then you get your rough mix after everything's kind of dialed in. Everybody feels pretty good with that, and then you'll listen to that. You might take some time just reflecting on that, seeing if there's everything there that you really want. And if there's problems with the mix, then you want to adjust that before you get to your. So this would lead into the next point, which would be your revision. So with your revisions, really the end point of it being ready for mastering would be everybody's in agreement that it's cool.
This is the mix.
This is the mix. This is what we're going to send to mastering. There are times in mastering, which is usually done with a different studio. You can have the same studio master, but you generally don't necessarily want the same person that mixed your song to master it, because you kind of want a different perspective, although it can be done. I mean, I master a lot of songs that I've mixed, but generally it's recommended to have a dedicated mastering studio do the mastering.
So this is where I think the viewers want to know what's between a final mix or the mix down and then the mastering.
At this point in the stage, we're roughly like 95%, maybe even a little more than that, of the song being fully complete, as far as time goes. So the difference of a mix and a master, there's a couple of different things. So one of the purposes of doing a master is to get it sounding consistently good on all sound sources, all different speaker sources. It sounds good on your phone, it sounds good on your earbuds, in your car, in a home theater system. It sounds good everywhere. The frequencies are balanced to account for, say your mix might sound great in the car, but in your phone, certain elements of it are just poking out way too much. So mastering does that. It kind of balances it through different sound sources. It'll bring the volume up to a competitive level to compete with other commercially released songs. And it might be prepared for a certain delivery, a certain platform, whether it's Spotify, iTunes, back when CDs were still a thing. I mean, some people still listen to CDs, but you would have mastered a song specifically for that format. So your destination is important in terms of your mastering, but for the most part, it's just your final polish of your song. Smoothing out the inconsistencies of where it might be lacking in one sound source, one playback source, headphones or so, and getting it to a commercially acceptable volume.
So just to clarify about the final mix and the mastering, let me add a little bit more on that. For example, if you mix the whole album, the mastering part, basically you want to make sure that from track 1 to track 10, there's the space, the consistency in terms of the loudness level, or
the tones,
or
it sounds like it's meant to be on the same album, even if they may have been recorded on a completely different time frame.
Or the streaming platform that you'll be using, whether it's going to be Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, because each of those platform distributor or they use a different coding.
A lot of places just have different preferences, so
you want to make sure that you use the right codec. If your final album, or whether it's an EP, could be a vinyl, and for vinyl, that's what the mastering.
That's going to have some dedicated mastering for vinyl. So at this point, we've taken a rough idea. We've arranged it, we've structured it, we've added all the elements we want in a song, we've gotten a demo, taken that to a studio who then retracked it, did its editing, mixing, got the final approval of the mix of everybody involved, sent it to mastering, got her mastered for the specific formats we want. So now we have a song that's ready to release. So now a couple things that we want to keep in mind when you're ready to release a song. One of which would be, well, you want to copyright it. You want to, ideally you would go do it through a Library of Congress. I believe there was a law passed not too long ago that as soon as you publish a song, you do have some protection, but the most surefire way would be to register with the Library of Congress. So your master recording is protected. If you want to go further than that, you could always transcribe or pay someone to transcribe it. So you got notation, sheet music notation of your song. That covers it if someone wanted to try to re-record your song. So if you register your master recording, that just protects the recording itself. It's its own entity. But if someone wanted to re-record your song in a different key, in a different arrangement, technically you're not fully protected unless you also copyright your, a transcribed version of your song too. So that's an important part of the process if you want to protect your work. Again, your one purpose of people putting out music, even though I don't think it should be the main reason, but is to make money. I like people that, just want to do music for the love of it, but I understand to some people it's a business, and that's totally fine. So tracking your sales, getting paid your royalties, depending on the platform. Some pay more than others, but you would want to sign up with one of those performing rights organizations. Your BMIs, your ASCAPs, your CSACs. There are other ones you can sign up to, but a publishing company that would help track your sales or your streams of a song and help you get paid is, one of the revenue streams as an artist, not just performing, getting paid to play shows, selling merchandise. Those are the other avenues. But, getting paid for your song that you spent all this time and energy and blood, sweat, and tears, into, it's good to track and make sure you're getting what you're due.
Right. Well, so there you go. That's the process from having an idea of a song to get it published. And I noticed that a lot of you guys out there are probably going to have a lot more detailed questions, especially the publishing part. To me, seems to be the first thing come in mind because it's relate a lot. So I think it might deserve another video.
In the comment section, let us know which step you'd like to hear more about for a future video.
Well, thank you for watching, guys. Before we go, we have something. So don't forget. I don't know how cheesy is it.